Hi! I have a new tutorial for you guys. This time it's watercolors. This is not my first time filming this video. It seems like I can never get a video on the first try. Let's start with the basics. Paper is very important. If any of you have ever tried watercoloring on like thin printer kind of paper, you know that shit don't work. You need a really thick paper for watercolor. And if you're just starting out, I recommend a hot press paper because it's a lot smoother, and those of you who are used to drawing will be used to the texture, and you can get details a lot better, and it's nice. I prefer hot press paper. That's my cat. My art cat. So rude. She's probably going to be in the video a lot. Anyway. But today I'm going to be working on cold press because it's the common one. It's the one you find everywhere. Usually if it doesn't say what type of paper it is, it's probably cold press. And it's really textured. I don't know if you can see that. Which gives it a nice look, I think. Harder to do like really tiny details, but that's okay. I mean, sometimes you just gotta work on like shapes and colors and stuff, and it's good practice, and if you do it right, it looks good. And if you do it wrong, it still looks good, because it's watercolor. And watercolor makes everything look beautiful. So, yeah. Second most important thing, you're going to have to tape your paper down. Technically, I guess it's optional. Since you're working with water and paper, it's going to wrinkle, because that's what happens. What I do is I take this very expensive textbook. I now use it for art. It's French. It cost me like $100. And you just take the paper and you tape the edges, and it also creates like a nice border if you tape it evenly. It looks nice. Of course, this one's not going to look great because I ripped it terribly. I might just rip all the edges and make it look like that, just so it looks pretty. Don't use regular tape, because then when you take it off, it's gonna rip. It's gonna rip the paper. What you need is masking tape, which I don't have on hand. That's terrible. Okay, unfortunately I couldn't find my masking tape. No excuses. So I'm using washi tape. Rip the edges a little bit, which is gonna make it a lot harder for me to tape this down and make a nice border. But that's okay. I'll do my best. A tip for you all is to take the tape, measure it, cut it, put it on your shirt, if that makes sense, around on my boobs, and you just you do that so it takes away some of the stickiness. It's a tip I learned in high school. It works. Right on. And yeah, you just repeat all the sides. Okay, I went ahead and drew a very weird looking Sally. I did it like half from memory, so it might not be accurate. Actually, it's not accurate because I had to check online and stuff. But oh well. She doesn't have eyebrows, which kind of threw me off. But yeah. How I do this is I do a light sketch with pencil, and then I go over it with a micron pen. I don't know if that's focusing. I don't think this thing has autofocus. Man, I need some new equipment. But anyway, micron pens. You could also use India ink if you have it. Once it dries, it is permanent, so that works. What you shouldn't use is black watercolor, which I have done, because once you go over it with the color, it's just going to bleed everywhere. So yeah, we learn from my mistakes, children. And I'm just taking a kneaded eraser and I'm getting rid of the pencil marks. I'm just kind of gently taking away as much as I can. Now that we've done that, really all you want to do is put down the base colors, and I'll be showing you how to do that, and I forgot the water. Be right back. Okay, so here's my whole setup. Here are my notes. Let me make sure I've got everything. Whoa! I also need a new tripod. You want to start off with thin washes, but not too thin, because then it's just going to be like a lot of water, and what that does is it kind of fades and like rubs into the paper, and it makes weird things. It might happen with this paper, you'll see. So what you can do is you can use a tray like this if you want. Sorry about the weird lighting, by the way. I don't have a good lighting source yet. You can use a tray like that, or you could just use the little trays that your watercolor palette comes in. I like this brand, by the way, Prang. It's very good. So what you want to do, let me zoom in on video on this again. What you want to do is thin washes, but don't make the colors too watery. Let me see if I get, is that focused? I hope so. It's a bit dark, isn't it? Sorry about that. So just mix it. Mix your color on the tray. Hi, kitty. Are you here to help, or are you here to mess things up, huh? Kitty, I'm gonna paint right on your face. So make sure to get a lot of color on your paintbrush, and don't be afraid, really. It's worse if you start really light, and yet light washes of color. So don't go so dark that to the point that you can't see the line work underneath. And you'll get a feel for this once you start practicing. And right now you're just focusing on the base colors. Now this is one technique, is that you just wait for everything to dry before going on to other things. For example, I'm going to wait for her skin color to dry before I move on to her hair. If I work while the skin color is still wet, the colors might bleed together. So like right here where it touches, it's going to bleed. Sometimes you can do that, the wet on wet technique. I don't know if that's like the technical term or whatever, but sometimes it looks kind of cool. And once you get a little bit more practice with it, you can kind of experiment, and it's fun, and it's nice, and whatever you do, it always ends up looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up right now, and just get everything down, and then we'll move on to layering. Actually, before I start on speeding this up and doing all the base colors, I forgot to mention, very important, get either a paper towel, some toilet paper, something you can blot stuff with. Very important. And sometimes when you get just too much water, too much color on your paintbrush, you can just like dab it onto the tissue that I'm using now, or the paper towel, and it helps. It really helps, because sometimes it's just too watery and it starts dripping all over the place, and you don't want that. So, a very important tool. While I'm here, one thing I forgot to mention, don't go darker than the lightest you want to go, if that makes sense. With watercolor, you can't go lighter once you go dark. So I hope that makes sense. Like, see here, this red that I'm using, this is the lightest it's going to get. And I can work on shadows, but I can't, if I want the highlights to be lighter than this, I'm screwed unless I use gel pen or something. Or gouache, but that's like, we'll talk about that in another video. And another thing I wanted to mention, sometimes you start running out of the color that you mixed, and that sucks, because you can never really mix the same color twice. It's like a rule of painting. Always make enough color. And if you want to cheat a little bit, just grab water and pull the color down. If you see, it will get it lighter, but it's something, you know. Here you can see kind of what I meant about the colors bleeding if you work wet on wet. I'm okay with this for now. Kind of looks cool. Plus, you know, you're working watercolor, it's not going to be perfect, and that's part of the thing you have to learn. You have to learn to let go, because there's no controlling watercolor, really. And that's kind of the beauty of it. So as you can see, the color that I pulled down is a lot lighter than the color originally, and right here there's a weird texture because I added water on top of color, and that's what happens. But now we can start, actually I'm going to let it dry and work on the background while I do that, and then I'll come back and start layering. Okay, so far so good. I wanted to show you kind of the warping I was talking about. I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of wavy. That's just because the background is wet. We started kind of layering colors, like the blue and the purple and the yellow in the background. And that there is a wet on wet technique. Again, I don't know if that's the technical term, but yeah, if you were to do it dry, it would just be kind of blocky. That kind of thing works on, like, let's do the hair, for example. Get a color that's a bit darker, a bit more shaded than the color you're about to use, in this case the hair. I like using purple as a shadow. I feel like I've said this before somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I say this a lot. But I do, I like using purple as a shadow. Never use black as a shadow. Trust me. It just makes everything look ugly as hell. Just please don't do it. Don't do that to your art. One thing I struggle with that I should work on right now is that I always work with like the same 2 paintbrush sizes. Try to switch it up. If you make a color too dark, like too saturated, add more water. And see, you can never quite get the same color twice. That's okay. Work with it. This is what I mean when I say you shouldn't really saturate the color too much. I did so right here on the lips. It loses the pretty transparent look of watercolors. So if that happens, just see? Much better. And it looks so much better than just one big saturated thing. Another thing I recommend when it comes to watercolor is leave it for a while. Don't say you're finished, don't take off the tape or anything, just leave it. Go do something, come back, look at it, and keep working on it. Or, if you think it's good, then it's good. It always helps to take a little break. Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this helped.